Today, we are here to talk about a normal, healthy, everyday facet of life. We're here to talk about conflict. How many people here typically have their stomachs drop at the mention of the word conflict? I know I do. This is a valid reaction to conflict, as it often stirs up uncomfortability in us. It is hard to be uncomfortable. It is hard to sit in emotions in situations that cause us discomfort. However, if a conflict is a normal part of everyday life, why does it make us so uncomfortable? And why do we let it negatively impact our relationships with others? Avoiding hard conversations in our lives fuels disconnection from others. For me, this has been one of the hardest parts of conflict to overcome and is a pivot in mindset that does not happen overnight. Things like personality, lived experiences, and trauma all impact our ability to handle conflict. Growing up, I lived in a household where healthy conflict was not modeled. Often when conflicts and arguments occurred, everything got flipped upside down and things became tense. It was not until later in life when I learned about healthy conflict and its necessity. My journey with conflict started to shift when I was sitting in my therapist's office and asked them, why do I want to run away every time I need to have a hard conversation with someone? What I learned is that for me, it feels easier to run away than it does to sit in a difficult moment where you might need to be vulnerable, share impact, or express shame. I had normalized that disconnection was needed to maintain relationships. Through much more therapy and work with restorative practices, I have come to learn the positive power of conflict. Conflict is actually a driver of connection. For those hard conversations that we all avoid, they actually strengthen our relationships. These conversations can change the trajectory of where relationships are headed and where they actually end up going. They clarify, heal, and empower relationships, serving as a catalyst for connection. So when thinking about conflict, something that I believe is that the roots of discomfort with conflict actually come from not understanding it. So let's break it down. Conflict is differences between people. These differences could be how people view a situation, the world, their values, or even how they like to load the dishwasher. Conflict occurs when at least one person in the situation has a need that goes unmet, or aspects of their identity or values are challenged, threatened, or undermined. Conflict highlights these differences in us, even when we feel connected and close to the people in our lives. However, these differences that come up as conflict are not inherently bad. These differences are actually opportunities to improve relationships as they clarify situations and can often reconcile tension. But the process of getting there obviously makes handling conflict complicated. When things about us that make us who we are and we hold close are questioned, it's easy to become upset, shut down, pull away, and not have a hard conversation. So how do we shift this desire to not shut down and retreat? How do we allow ourselves to view these conversations as a tool to strengthen our relationships rather than further fuel disconnection? To start, we first need to consider what is actually causing us to want to stop engaging in conflict. Let's think about vulnerability. Vulnerability is the act of being known and knowing others in the ways where they see the deepest and most complex parts of who we are. Vulnerability with others allows people to see the authentic you. Things like what your family was like growing up, how you view the world, your dreams, your fears, even your mistakes. Humans value and need connection with people. These intimate connections with others actually make relationships worth having. So if people cannot do life alone and they crave connection, why is vulnerability so challenging? Vulnerability causes discomfort if your fears, mistakes, and dreams have not been treated with the care they have deserved in the past. If other people have invalidated, dismissed, or mistreated these parts that you've shared with them, it's hard to open back up and be vulnerable again. This causes people to pause when they feel conflict approaching. Their invisible field of defense goes up, and it needs to be disarmed before having a vulnerable conversation. Avoiding vulnerability allows us to retreat and not bring up concerns to the people in our lives. In addition to vulnerability, fear of the unknown can also impact our ability to engage in conflict. Fear of the unknown is that voice in our head saying, what if? What if I tell my partner, I've been feeling connected in our relationship and it doesn't go well? What if I tell my best friend, I'm concerned about your drinking patterns and they yell at me? What if I say to my parent, that post you made on social media really bothered me, and they don't come visit me anymore? Once we say the words we want to say out loud, we cannot take them back. We cannot delete a comment or re-record a message once that thought is out there. The fear of the unknown is also complicated by the fact that we can only control our own reactions. We cannot control our partners, our friends, our parents, our coworkers, or anyone else we interact with. If we could, life would be much simpler, but it wouldn't be authentic. Shame is another contributor to ways that we want to avoid conflict. Shame can show up in many ways. One way shame shows up is believing that our needs, thoughts, or feelings aren't a big deal or worth bringing up to someone else. For instance, my desire to spend more time with my partner isn't actually that big of a deal. I know things will get better once their busy season is over. Or I didn't like how my roommate spoke to me in front of their parents. I'm sure though they're just stressed or I was being sensitive. Often if something in our gut is fluttering, it is often reminding us to check in with ourselves and that something that's happening might not actually be okay. By ignoring these flutters, we are actually allowing shame to win and tell us that it is okay to abandon our own needs. However, we deserve to have our needs met and allow others the opportunity to grow and change to better show up in our relationships. The other side of shame that comes with conflict that makes it more difficult is accountability. It is hard to own when we have made mistakes or messed up. However, to grow in our relationships with others, rebuild trust, and repair harm, it is important that we acknowledge when we have made a mistake, even when that mistake and owning that mistake might lead to more conflict. Naming, hey, I was really drunk last night, and I know I hurt your feelings. Can we talk about it? Or, I'm so sorry I missed our phone call the other day. Your friendship is really important to me. How can I make this up to you? Acknowledging the hurt that we have caused is powerful, but it is hard. It is easy to want to push away and not process how our actions may have impacted someone else. However, if we are unable to do this, are we actually able to genuinely build relationships? If we let the feelings of embarrassment or shame take over, we are going to feel stuck in our relationships with others. This causes us again to want to pull away or avoid engaging in conflict as a tool to actually repair relationships. All of these factors, vulnerability, fear of the unknown, and shame, are all reasons why it can feel so easy to block, cancel, or disengage from people in our lives. But is that really easy? Or is that just avoiding engaging in conflict, really doing more harm to us and our relationships? So what happens if we don't engage in conflict? We are impacted and our relationships suffer. If we do not allow ourselves to have the hard conversations with others, we are telling ourselves that we do not matter. Our needs are not important. Our view on this situation is insignificant and our instincts are wrong. Over time, our internal voice begins to believe us. We will continue to choose to not be true to ourselves and express what we need from others. As we wrap up our time together today, I want to leave you all with a couple of things to reflect on. What is causing you to pause when you need to engage in conflict? How might your relationships change if you lean into discomfort with others? What connection is missing from your relationships? The more honest and vulnerable we can be with others, the more connected we will feel to our community and serve as catalysts for change through our relationships. Thank you.